So what led to you getting a guitar?
Me and a couple of friends had been jamming to some records with tennis rackets.
Oh, yeah.
And we got this brilliant idea one day that, hey, how about we get some real electric guitars?
Yeah.
You know?
Do you remember the first song you played?
Yeah, I do. It was Smoke on the Water. And
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I think that's everybody's first song.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
If it's not that, then now it's probably Sweet Child of Mine. It's one of those.
Yep, or something from Metallica or something, you know.
So who were you influenced by at the time? Who were you listening to?
My very first major influence was Iron Maiden. And I was really into Iron Maiden, and I was into Adrian Smith, and I wanted one of those Ibanez Explorers that he played so bad. And I was into just some normal stuff like that at first, like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Black Sabbath, and Ozzy. But when I discovered Randy Rhoads being an Ozzy, that was my first major guitar hero for a real guitar hero, you know what I mean? In the first 3 years that I played guitar, it was Randy Rhoads or die. I'd make my own little cassette tapes of just all of Randy's solos from all the Ozzy albums, where it'd play solo after solo and not the songs, just so I could listen to just the solos, you know?
So were you able to listen to them and copy them from you?
When I first started trying to learn songs note for note from other artists, I discovered that after about 5 or 10 minutes into trying to figure out a riff by somebody else, I discovered that I would come up with 3 or 4 of my own riffs by trying to figure out what they were playing. So at that point, I discovered that, well, hey, I can write just by being inspired or influenced by who I'm listening to. But having said that, I did learn a ton of Randy's solos from some indirect sources. So there was a course out there at the time called Metal Method. And Metal Method's lessons 7 and 8 was in the style of Randy Rhoads, and then the other one was in the style of Eddie Van Halen. And in the Randy Rhoads style lesson, he taught all these Randy Rhoads style licks that if you put them together in the right order, they ended up being solos from the songs. So I ended up learning indirectly, you know what I mean? Solos for Over the Mountain, SATO, Diary of a Madman, Flying High Again, and several other ones I had, you know, and I pretty much learned them note for note. And Revelations, Mother Earth, which was another great one. So I ended up learning those, and I learned up some Van Halen solos. And shortly after that, in the U.S., there was a magazine called Guitar for the Practicing Musician that came out. And it had tabs for guitars. And that was the first magazine ever in the U.S. that actually had tabs for songs.
That was actually the magazine that Buckethead was first in, too.
Yes, I have that article where he doesn't have his mask on. As Brian Carroll with the long pinky finger extension.
Yeah.
I still have that. The column was called Resume.
It's crazy how that magazine was so far ahead, like knowing great guitar players, like they really understood great guitar players.
Yeah, absolutely. So Randy was my first guy, and then after Randy, it was Yngwie. And I remember the first time I heard Yngwie, my friend was like, dude, you got to hear this guy on the radio. They were playing Yngwie's Steeler solo, Hot on Your Heels, right?
Oh, yeah.
And me and my friend were trying to fight over the headphones to hear it, and my other friend went like, yanked the headphones out and said, here, you guys can both listen, dumbasses, you know. So that was my first experience with Yngwie, and that's all it took. I mean, that Steeler solo, Hot on Your Heels, that unaccompanied intro to that song was just like sent me back to the woodshed, and it's changed my life forever, you know.
Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
I have never had a chance to meet Yngwie personally. I saw Yngwie play on the Rising Force tour in Houston and got his autograph, but indirectly he didn't come off the bus to sign autographs, so he wouldn't interact with anybody.
That doesn't sound like Yngwie.
Right, you know. And then one time, not too long ago, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, I was at the NAMM show in Anaheim, and I'm walking along, and all of a sudden somebody slams into me, right? And I turned around, and it's Yngwie. So me and Yngwie ran into each other, and he didn't even turn around and flinch to see who he just ran into.
Of course, yeah.
I just turned around and went, oh, wow, that's Yngwie. He just almost knocked me over. So that's my closest experience to actually meeting Yngwie.
So do you think he is actually as bad as people say, or?
I don't. I think there's honestly, I think there's both sides to it because I have a couple of friends that have met Yngwie and have had like great experiences hanging out with Yngwie, and Yngwie was the coolest. Like a security guard was trying to get one of my friends out of there, and Yngwie was like, "No, no, he's with me," and let him stay. And then I've heard horror stories, and I don't know from firsthand that he's either way because I haven't experienced it.
So when was the first time you started performing? Because you were doing like school performances, right?
Yeah, I did. I played in the high school talent show in 10th grade, and I played Eruption and the solo to Revelation's Mother Earth. I just walked out there. It was my first time to play in front of an audience, and for whatever reason, on better half from my part, I didn't have stage fright or nothing. I just went out there and I like owned. It was really cool.
What was the reaction?
It was very good, man. The high school was full to capacity and had people standing in the aisles to watch. But I did notice something early on that will stick with me for the rest of my life, is that most people that aren't musicians don't get all the technical stuff. So, for example, when I'm playing all the technical stuff from Van Halen's Eruption or Revelation's Mother Earth, I'm kind of getting that stone face look. But as soon as I hit a dive bomb and it went, "Bow," everybody went, "Yeah!" Like it was the coolest thing ever. Which I could have given them my guitar, and anybody could do that.
Yeah. Or just play Smoke on the Water.
Right. Yeah. So, right then I kind of got an understanding of what was to come, futuristically speaking, you know what I mean? As far as what, your average person off the street gets and doesn't get, Sound effects is more impressive than being actually technically proficient at your instrument.
Yeah, it's bizarre to me, but there you go. So what was your first band?
My first band was a band called Dreamer, and it was me and a good friend of mine that I still am in very much contact with to this day. He goes by Kareem K now. He's a great guitar player. And then later on, me and the same guitar player went to form a band called Revolution, which is what I would consider to be my first real band. It was kind of like a mixture of Racer X meets Skid Row or something.
I saw some of the videos on your YouTube where you're playing, I think it's Billy X.
Yeah. Right.
And I mean, you're like 17 or 18 or something. It just blows my mind.
Yeah. I mean, my influences were at that time I was a total Yngwie fan. And then I heard Paul Gilbert with Racer X, Street Lethal. And it was like, holy cow, this is like an American metal version of Yngwie.
Mm.
And I was just hooked, man. I mean, I've worn out Street Lethal several copies, and
Have you had the chance to meet Paul?
not officially. Again, I met Paul one time in Houston years ago. I mean, it would be back really. I mean, like 20 plus years when he was at a Houston guitar show, and I bumped into him and got to say hi and.
So he did turn around when you bumped into him.
Yeah, he did actually. Yeah. But I mean, at that time, I was just a kid, and had no, there's no way, there was no internet or anything like that, or I had nothing of substantial that he would even consider worth checking out. You know what I mean?
So what do you think about all these guys that are still around now and still doing it, like the Yngwies, Paul Gilberts, like they're still out there doing it?
I think it's great. I mean, really, the internet has been an interesting enigma because it's been great for some people and it's been not so great for others because I mean there's a lot of musicians out there that are starving now because of the internet, and there's a whole generation of fans that don't know that you actually buy music.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I definitely know. Yeah.
And that's a sad thing. And if anybody dares to speak up about it, we're like scalded, like we did something wrong when it's our music, our craft that's being ripped off.
And for me, I prefer CDs and vinyls. I like to have a book in my hand. I like to read lyrics. If it is lyrics, I like to see the pictures.
You want to read the liner notes.
How did you come to start playing a 7-string?
When the 7-string first came out, the first 7-string that I was aware of was the Ibanez 7-string. even though 7-string guitar has been around way longer than that, jazz guys were playing it back in the 40s and 50s, I think. And the store that I was teaching guitar at the time got 3 of them. So I bought one of them. I put it on layaway, and I had to pay it off. And I got it early '96. I got it, my first 7-string, and it was the Ibanez Universe. And
because like you're the first one that I really remember seeing playing a 7-string. I don't really remember anyone else before that. Obviously, you said they were, but to me, you were the first guy that I saw.
Wow, that's cool, man. That's awesome. Yeah, the first guy that I knew of was obviously Vi. He had it on the Passion and Warfare album, and at the time they released him, I just couldn't afford one. And
have you seen these 20-string guitars?
I haven't seen a 20-string guitar yet, but I've seen something close, like the 18 or whatever.
There's this guy on YouTube, I don't know if you know him, called Stevie T.
Yeah, I know who Stevie T is. And then Jared Dines did the 18-string one or something.
Yeah, that was somebody's made a 20-string and sent that to him. And
yeah, but I mean, that's pretty much ridiculous, you know.
it's very, very ridiculous.
It's a gimmick. I mean, let me see you really play that on an everyday basis.
I think you could play it, though. I definitely think you could play it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could do anything you set your mind to.
True, very true. But we definitely won't see you with an 18-string or 20-string.
No, that's to me is just a gimmick. It's just like it's a YouTube anomaly that like, right now I got a 25-string.
When does it end? So what's the hardest technique that you've had to learn on guitar? What's the one that took you the longest to learn?
I would say the hardest technique for me to develop, which I'm still developing to this day, is 8-finger tapping, using all 8 fingers. When I say 8-finger tapping, I don't mean like one finger at a time like this. I mean like rolls. If you try to do an actual roll where you're using all 8 fingers in a roll, that's hard. That's way harder than doing single-digit tapping with your right hand.
So how many hours a day would you put into practicing when you were first starting?
By the time I graduated from high school, I was probably practicing 3 to 4 hours a day, and I actually started teaching guitar when I was a senior in high school. When I started playing guitar, it was like a light switch went off, and it was just like my whole personality and everything about me changed. And I mean, it was a hard adjustment for my parents to get used to, and my friends to get used to as well, because I went from being like a popular, outgoing kid, hanging out and doing all activities and stuff, to going home and going to my room and playing my guitar and not coming out of my room.
But that's essentially what it takes. That's why you got to where you got to.
Right. It was like send my meals to my room, and
Yeah.
I lost a lot of friends pretty quick when you answer the phone like this. What? I'm trying to practice. You know. So I quickly went from being a popular kid to being an unpopular kid, which I could care less about.
Yeah.
You know. It saved me from probably getting into a lot of trouble, actually, going out and doing all the stupid things that kids that age do.
Did you start growing the hair as soon as you started playing guitar?
I wanted to, but my dad was an ex-military guy, and my mom was a beautician, and my dad was like, you either get in that chair and you let your mother cut your hair, or I'm cutting it. And I was like, okay. But once I turned 18, it was like, hey, grow my hair. So that's when I started growing it. And when I graduated from high school, that's when the practicing increased tremendously. So my schedule once I graduated from high school was I would simply get up in the morning and I would practice all day until I would go in to teach. And then I would teach guitar. And then I would come home and practice. And then I would go to band rehearsal. So it was literally, I mean, I had my guitar in my hands at least 12 hours or more a day.
So you mentioned Steve Vai earlier. You've met Steve, right? How was he?
I met Steve a couple of times. The first time I met Steve Vai was about 2 months after I saw Yngwie play on the Rising Force tour. Alcatraz came through with Steve Vai, and Steve Vai was playing all of Malmsteen's stuff, plus the first Alcatraz album with Vai on it. And I got to see Vai up close, and I met Steve. I got to meet him, and we talked for, 5-10 minutes after the show, and he signed my little cassette I had. It was a cool experience, Again, I was just a kid, and this was way before the era of the internet, or I was actually had anything presentable to any musician as anything worthy. And he was very nice, very polite. And then I met him years later. He was doing this thing called Guitars in the Round, and I met him. I met him again at that point and just said hi and had him sign something and got a picture with him, and that was pretty much it. I mean, he was polite.
Was he as charismatic and flashy off stage?
Off stage, he was very much just a regular guy, and pretty much even during that experience, he was pretty casual.
So have you ever met a musician or celebrity who's just turned out to be terrible, who you wish you'd never met at all?
Yes, I have. There are not very many of them, and I don't want to mention any names just because I don't do that. But there have been a couple of guys that have just been like, "Wow, you're just an asshole."
Yeah. Did you get that impression before you met them, or?
No, I never got that impression before I met them, because I mean, I don't care what anybody says about anybody. If I haven't met them to experience it, then I'm not gonna hold that as true, because I've experienced that myself, where people that I don't even know and have never met just think, "Oh, Rusty Cooley is an asshole," and it's like, well, why? I mean, I've never met you, and
Is it mostly guitar players that are the cooler ones?
Well, that's usually the only ones I want to meet anyway.
Yeah.
Most all the guitar players that are really, really badass. I mean, and of monumental levels. I mean, seriously, that everybody knows, big names that I've met. They're all very cool. And most musicians of that status, regardless of what instrument they play, are always super cool. Those guys don't have nothing to prove. And if anything, they want to sit down with you and figure out what they can learn from you, and vice versa. It's not a competition. It's not an ego thing. It's just like, wow, that's cool. Show me that, or you show me this lick, or
Yeah, they always want to learn.
that's the way it should be. We're not in competition with one another. Music's not a sport.
True, very true. So how did the Chops from Hell tapes come about? Because I think that was actually the first time that I'd ever seen or heard of you was from them tapes.
Right. The Chops from Hell thing came about. I had known about the website, so I contacted him and I said, hey, what does it take to put out something with your company? And they said, well, we like your playing and let's do it. So I set up a video camera on a tripod and sat in front of it.
I've just played.
Which I think on one of my later Chops from Hell instructionals, I think it's either The Art of Picking or Extreme Pentatonics, you can actually hear my daughter.
Yeah.
She's almost 19 years old now. So at the time, she was in a crib in the next room, and you could hear her yelling at the TV or something while I was trying to shoot the video. And Chris, the guy at Chops from Hell, asked me if I wanted to edit that out. And I said, you know what? No, I don't. Because this is my life. This is what it's really like to be me.
Yeah.
And I left that in there on purpose because I wanted people to know that,
it's not always a celebrity life.
Right. It's not. This is the real life. This is me on my everyday basis. I'm a father. I take care of my kids. At the same time, I'm trying to be proficient on my instrument, write productively, and do this. And I'm doing it all myself.
So how many children do you have?
I've got two. My son is 24, and my daughter is going to be 19 this year in October.
Are they musical or not?
Yes, they're both musical. Matter of fact, my daughter contacted me a couple of days ago and said she was thinking about getting back into vocal lessons. And my son originally played guitar and played drums, and now he's doing a lot of he's into a lot of this DJ producer kind of stuff now, which I give him a hard time because it's not really my thing, but I don't want to discourage him because it's music. But I always have to give him a hard time because I'm like, Sebastian, that's not a turntable is not an instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Dad, I got to drop beats in on certain time, and it's like, sorry, son, it's not an instrument. It's not an instrument. Go back to your drums.
Will we see a family album soon or not?
I don't know about soon, but that would be awesome one day to do that. It would be really super cool.
So how did your first album come about?
That first album came about when at the right time for the internet to start to bloom.
It was like 2003 or 4?
Yep. And the first thing that the world ever got to hear me was as an instrumental guitar player, which I only meant that instrumental album to be a temporary thing until I was ready to get back into a band. I never set out to be an instrumental guitarist. But the first thing the world heard me as was Rusty Cooley solo guitarist, and that's a hard thing to shake, Not that it's a bad thing.
That's kind of what you were labeled as.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was labeled as, and The internet's an interesting enigma because it's like it's really the best way I can describe it is as short attention span theater.
Yeah.
I did my instrumental album and then I put together this band Outworld, which was what I really wanted to be doing the whole time, which was a vocal band. You know, I'd much prefer to be in a band project working with musicians and interacting and writing together. But you would be amazed at people that profess to be your fans. They go to your website and stuff, and I have Outworld everywhere on my website and on my, at the time, MySpace or something like that at the time, you know. And people would still go, "Oh, you're in a band?"
And I'm sure Paul Gilbert and all them get the same. Like, oh, you were in a band?
Yeah, right? So that always baffles me.
So what was the hardest song on the album?
The Butcher.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah. The Butcher is the song title actually came from a nickname that we gave it at rehearsal, which was, let's see if we can get through this tonight without butchering it.
Yeah.
And that song's definitely the hardest song on the album because it's just like, for me, it's got everything in the kitchen sink thrown in there, from alternate picking, sweep picking, to string skipping, to tapping, to, you know, every finger, and, you know, it's nuts, dude. Yeah.
Is it your favorite song on the album?
I don't know. It's definitely one of my favorites. I mean, every one of the songs has a little special place in my heart for it. But it's like the other night I was sitting with a student and I listened to Jasmine's song off the instrumental album for the first time in years. And I was listening to it going, wow, that's so much better than I remember it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you are with your music, but when I write music, it takes me a long time to like my stuff after it's done.
Like you always want a perfection that you can never reach anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know.
So do you still play the songs? Because you said you hadn't heard that song for a while, so you don't play them?
No, I don't. I don't go back and play them unless I have a reason to play them, because I'm trying to keep going forward, right? They would benefit me to practice because I can't play some of those songs anymore. You know?
I bet.
You know, so if I had to go play The Butcher, I don't know how long it would take me to get that technique level back again. I've recently had some left-hand issues that I'm working with now, and it's really frustrating. So I have a friend that's in the nutritional industry that knows a lot about hand injuries and things like that, and he's given me some supplements to take, and it's like the first time in my life I've ever had to warm up guitar. I've never had to warm up before now. As long as I've been playing guitar, I could always just pick it up and play. Now, that doesn't mean that I could pick it up and go play The Butcher live.
Yeah.
I've got a stiffness in my hands and fingers, and I don't like it at all.
Yeah, I bet.
And I'm working with some supplements, and I'm on a working with some warm-ups and things like that.
So do you think that's just because of the natural age thing, or just from years and years and playing and hours and hours and hours?
You know, I'm not 100% sure about all of that, because I've been racking my brain about all of that stuff, and I noticed that it started to happen when I started playing my acoustic guitar more, which is a steel string with heavier gauge strings, and I started teaching more on a Telecaster style guitar in standard tuning, which is I play basically all my guitars are in half step down with nines, so it's pretty slinky for a lot of guys, right? So when I started playing on that Telecaster style guitar more with nines in standard tuning, and then my acoustic guitar in standard tuning, that's when I noticed things started to change. And I don't know if it has to do with I developed this heavier touch in standard tuning, and then when I get on my guitars tuned to E flat, my fingers would feel like they weren't functioning right because of the looseness of the strings. Or if maybe just because I don't have the time to practice as much as I practice, and that's doing it in combination with the getting older thing. You know. But I'm really proactively practicing and working harder to stay more consistent on a daily basis, to try to get this out of the way, because I don't like this at all. It's very frustrating. I don't like to be able to pick up my guitar and not be able to play what I want to play.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's you. That's what you do. You're a guitar player. I mean.
Right. So it's been frustrating, and I'm working hard to alleviate that problem. So check back with me in a few months.
We will. So what are the supplements?
One of the supplements is my good friend of mine is Lee Labrada, former Mr. Universe, and he owns a supplement company called Labrada Nutrition. And he's got me on a supplement called ElastiJoint. It's for your joints. And I don't know all the technical ins and outs of it. And he's got me on another one that's based on hair, skin, nails, and collagen and all that kind of stuff. And then he also recommended that I take like ibuprofen about 30 minutes before I start to play or practice, just to help reduce any swelling or inflammation that there might be in my hands. And another good thing to take in addition to that is as an NO. It's called nitric oxide. And what an NO does is, like for bodybuilders, it allows their blood vessels to dilate in their arms and legs or body, whatever they're working out, so that you can get bigger pumps when you're lifting weights, so that you can build bigger muscles. If you take an NO before you practice, it will help you be able to play longer before your hands stiffen up. You ever notice, like when you pick up your guitar first thing and you're cold and you try to play really, you try to get after it before you should, and your hands feel like they're just like slowing down and stiffening up? That's because your blood vessels have become so engorged with blood that you can't move. I've read a study on it. It's actually called the Rigor Mortis effect. If you die, your blood stops flowing, therefore you stiffen up. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So an NO makes your blood vessels expand so that you can get more blood through them, so you don't stiffen up so quick, so to speak. So sometimes I'll take an NO before I practice, or even before I play a gig, just to help dilate my blood vessels so that I can,
Obviously, we do a lot of Buckethead stuff on our channels. You've listed him as an influence. When did you first hear of Buckethead?
Well, the first time I heard of Buckethead was in that Guitar for the Practicing Musician issue, right? But I hadn't, of course, I just saw the picture. I didn't never hear him play. So I imagine it would have been, I don't know, man, in the early 90s somewhere that I heard Buckethead. But I remember just being completely blown away.
Yeah.
It was Praxis. It was Praxis, the stuff that I first heard by him.
Everybody says that, how good that band was.
Yeah, Mutatus, Mutandus, and then the Black. What was the other? Metatron.
Metatron, yeah.
Sacrifice. Or I had a friend from Japan that sent me Buckethead's first album, the double.
The Buckethead Land one.
Yeah, that one, and then I got Giant Robot, and it was just, man, it was amazing. Yeah, he's a sick player. My favorite stuff by him is all the crazy atonal sounding stuff.
Yeah, the nubbin.
Yeah. This sounds like your computer's crashing.
So what did you think of the whole mask and bucket thing?
I mean, I didn't really think too much about it. I just thought it was cool. It is what it is. I didn't really have too much thought either way about it. I just thought, oh, cool, Buckethead. It's just, that's what it was.
It's bizarre when people say about the mask and it's silly, and I don't listen to him because it's silly and all this stuff. It's bizarre.
Oh, that's retarded. That's retarded. Why would you not? I mean, that'd be like saying I don't want to listen to Kiss because they have makeup on.
Yeah, like that's the kind of crap I deal with on YouTube every day. Crap like that.
Yes. Yeah, I don't understand that. You don't have to listen with your eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen with your ears, and I mean, that's just like people. If you go back to the Yngwie thing, people saying that Yngwie's, an asshole or whatever people want to say. Regardless of that, I can't deny his music. His music has influenced my life and changed me as a person forever because of his playing. And that's that. Whether his personality and him as a person doesn't change me, his music changes me. And that's what matters, what we can say with our music.
So will we ever see you on stage with some nunchucks and?
Yeah, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. No, probably not. I'll play it safe and leave those to Buckethead.
And you met him at the NAMM show, right?
I did, man. I did. I met him, and I had actually kind of met him before that, but not in person. I actually wrote to him, and he wrote back, and I've got the letter still where he signed it all. It was all scribbly and stuff. And then when I met him at NAMM, and I took a picture with him, and I think I had him sign something or take a picture then. And when I went up, I didn't expect him to even acknowledge or even recognize me, because I don't ever expect anybody to know who I am for any reason. But as I was turning away and started to walk off, he kind of like nudged me and looked at me and gave me that like, cool, dude, I know, And so that was acknowledgement enough. That was cool. And Bootsy was there, of course, and that's cool.
Did you meet Bootsy?
Yeah, I got a picture with Bootsy too.
How was he?
He was super cool, man. Both of them, I mean, Buckethead was sitting there and he had a little baby in his arms.
I was gonna ask him about the baby. What did you think of the baby?
Yeah, that's crazy, man. It's crazy that it's crazy that he can actually just follow through with all that. I don't know that I could follow through. That takes commitment.
For so long.
Yeah, and like when he does the little hand puppet on his hand, and here's the nub and licks and scrapes the wall and all that stuff. It's awesome.
So what would you say is some of his best songs? Because obviously, you're influenced by him.
Anything that Buckethead's going nuts on, I like. Maybe one of my favorite albums is that's the one with Les Claypool on, where it starts off with a Michael Jordan quote at the beginning of the first song in the first album.
Oh, the Monsters and Robots.
I gotta keep on trying every day, get better, and keep on pushing.
Jumpman.
Yeah, that's Jumpman.
I can't never stop working hard.
That's probably one of my favorite. But I also like Cobra Strike.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what it's called.
That's it, yeah. Him and Brain.
Yeah, I like that album a lot. There's some cool stuff on there. And I've heard some, and I like that album. What is it called? Is it called Nashville or Tennessee or something?
Oh, Tennessee, yeah, the Praxis one.
Dude, I love that album too. I just recently got that within the last year or so. He's playing like some Hendrix stuff. I feel like it's almost like a tribute to Shawn.
Oh, yeah. Which I was going to ask you next about Shawn.
Yeah, Shawn Lane is like one of my biggest influences ever. Yeah.
Did you ever get to meet him, or he was already...
No, I did get to meet him. I met him in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta for a couple of years, and he played up there at this place called Earthshaker Music. And the night before I saw him, he played with John Abercrombie in Atlanta, and then the next night he played at this music store where they had a room in the back, and it was him and Jonas, and I don't know if it was Jeff Sipe on drums or who it was. But I got to see him that night perform live up close. It was great. Got to meet him briefly and had him sign my Powers of 10 live CD, and and I was in line, so it wasn't like a thing where you could actually get to talk to him for any time. So, and I didn't want to be rude and stand there and hold everybody else up,
So what are some of your favorite songs from him?
I like from Powers of 10, I love Paris, Gray Pianos Flying.
My Epilogue.
I like the instructional video version, the electric version.
Oh, yeah.
And I love the album version as well, too, on nylon string. I was actually listening to that earlier today. Love that as well. And then I love Rice with the Angels. And
he's basically never done anything bad, so...
Right, yeah.
How did you come to work with Michelangelo?
Well, I've known Michelangelo for years. The band that I was in years ago called Revolution, we actually opened up for Nitro when they would come through Houston. When I heard Michelangelo picking on Freight Train Coming, it was like, holy cow.
Ridiculous.
Yes, right, exactly. So that sent me back to the woodshed working on my picking, for sure.
So were you in the same studio when you recorded the track for his album?
No, I was in Houston, yeah.
So you never got to have like a speed test or pick test or...
Well, no, but there is actually some documentation online. I'm not sure if you know who Troy Grady is and the whole cracking the code thing.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I read an interview one time with Troy, and he was talking about my picking, and he said that I easily come in 10 to 15 notes faster than Badio or Petrucci on any given time, based on a scientific study. Because he's worked with Badio and he studied Petrucci's stuff and he studied my stuff firsthand, and that came up in an interview. And he said tracking the code is not about a speed contest at all. It's about demystifying how we alternate pick. And he said based on observation of my videos and Badio's videos and Petrucci's and other guitar players, that mine was easily 15 to 20 notes faster.
So how was MAB? What is he like?
Mike's a super cool dude. He's just a nice guy. I can't put it any better way than that. Just good dude, loves to play guitar like we all do, and is just very enthused and excited about music. And
is he another one that people today just don't get? They think, oh, he's fast, and that's it.
I would definitely say that it's an unfair bias, because when you start getting put into that category, then for whatever reason, people just start shutting off the fact that you make music. I mean, I've had my entire career based on one lick that I taught on one website. It's like, oh, well, Rusty can't bend notes. You know, he has no feel or no vibrato. And it's like, well, I just saw that one lick on that one website.
Yeah.
I've never heard any of his music. You know, it's like,
same shit I deal with when it comes to the Buckethead. Same thing. Like, oh, I heard him shred and he's just a fast player. Forget all the 400 albums and thousands of songs.
Exactly. I mean, it baffles me to this day. I remember when Yngwie first came out, it was like Alcatraz and Rising Force, and guitar players would say, well, he just plays fast and has no feeling. I mean, that baffles me because Yngwie's got some of them. I mean, I feel Yngwie's music tremendously. I mean, he's got more phrasing and feeling, and he's got some of the best vibrato I've ever heard to this day, period.
I think part of it's just jealousy. They know that they can never be like that.
Yeah, and I don't understand that whole thing right there, because it's like you see people that go out and they make it a point to just bash people in playing. It's like, for me personally, I'm not going to go somewhere that I don't want to be. I'm going to go somewhere I want to be. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go hang out on a band's website or message board that I don't like. I'm going to go hang out on one that I do like and talk to people that I share the same interest and love with.
Be positive and productive and
right. Yeah, I have no interest in negativity or anything like that. It's like, either go where you want to be or don't go at all. You know.
Exactly. Yeah. Again, with the Buckethead videos, I don't get it. Why, if you don't like him, just don't comment on the video. Why are you here?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that helped me understand how the whole internet works was, and unfortunately I have to say this, it was when I saw someone bash on Shawn Lane, because I was like, what? That was just like, I didn't get that. I was like, wow, if somebody can actually say something bad about Shawn Lane, then, well, wow.
And they probably never heard him. They just want a reaction or whatever they want.
Yeah, I mean, and funny enough, people actually go out there to do that just on purpose because they got nothing. So for all the haters out there, it's like, you know, I give them something to do.
Yep.
If it wasn't me, they'd have to find somebody else to hate on.
True.
You know? You know, so God forbid what would they do tomorrow if they woke up and didn't have me to hate on?
Yeah.
You know?
Just hate on themselves. So you mentioned John Petrucci earlier. How did you meet him?
In Guitar One magazine, there was a column called "The 10 Fastest Shredders of All Time."
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah.
Right, one of those columns, right? And I came in at like number 7, and I think John was like 9 or something like that. And John is friends with Mark, and they were talking at NAMM one time, and I think Mark told me was, John was like, "Who the hell's this Rusty Cooley guy?" And from that point, Mark put me and John in contact, and we've been friends ever since. You know.
And how was he? Super nice guy.
Absolutely, man. John's just just total cool guy. He's, you know, I don't usually say this about dudes, but I mean, he's just like a gentleman. He's a teddy bear kind of guy. He's very, very cool, very warm, outgoing, caring. You know what I mean?
He seems that way every interview I see him in.
He's just super laid back and soft spoken. I can't even do my Petrucci. Yeah, how you doing? You know, he's cool. It's, you know, things like that, man. He's very focused and very aware of what he's doing. He's very professional.
Yeah, and still out there doing it.
Yeah. And getting better. That's what I look for in guitar players. My favorite guitar players are the ones where every album they put out, they're doing something new and better.
So how did Outworld come about?
Outworld was basically an extension of my instrumental album. Like I was saying earlier, I never really set off to be an instrumental guitar player. So all the guys that were performing with me on my solo stuff ended up being in Outworld. Everybody in the band was great. There was no weak links in the chain. You know, it was awesome.
You and Carlos seemed like the perfect fit.
Yeah, we worked together. We worked together great, and we still talk, and we've talked about doing some stuff together again. So who knows, man? We might see something eventually.
So how did Day of Reckoning come about then?
Day of Reckoning came about because towards the end of Outworld, I started listening to heavier and heavier music, And I felt like when I was in Outworld, no matter what I did with keyboards of that style and the vocals of that style, it sucked the heavy right out of all the riffs that I was writing. So when Outworld came to an end, I thought, okay, well, this is my opportunity to explore this style of music to the fullest.
So what about a solo album? Do you think you'll go back to that, or you've done it?
Well, here's what I want to do. I'm going to take some of the stuff off the original instrumental album, and I'm going to redo a few of the tracks so that they can finally be heard the way I intended them to be heard, because I had no budget initially when I was recording the album, and a lot of things got sacrificed, and even with the remix and remaster release of it, it still isn't what I wanted. So I'm going to redo a couple of the tracks, and I'm going to write some new stuff. And I want to put together an instrumental band so I can tour. I've missed some great touring opportunities with some great artists because I didn't have an instrumental band. So I'm currently working on getting a few of the old tracks redone so I can either tour with backing tracks or tour with a band.
If you could record an album with anyone dead or alive, who would it be? Just one person?
Oh, wow, that's crazy. The first person that came to mind would be Randy Rhoads.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just the first person that popped into my mind. Alive, geez, I don't know, man. There's so many great. I mean, yeah, it's almost like I don't know that I'd want to record an album with another guitar player because those guys are my heroes, and I don't know that I could have anything to contribute to my heroes.
You would, I'm sure you would, no doubt.
There's singers that I'd love to work with. I always was a big fan of the guy from TNT, Tony Harnell. He was a great singer. Love Bruce Dickinson's vocals. Rob Halford, Halford from Judas Priest. I'd love to work with any of those singers, man.
How he still sounds the same, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's why they call him the Metal God.
It's true, yeah.
Right?
So who would be on your Mount Rushmore when it comes to guitar players?
Oh, well, definitely Shawn Lane, Yngwie, Paul Gilbert, Jason Becker, Randy Rhoads, Alan Holdsworth. Do I have to stop? The song Under the Influence off my instrumental album, that's a tribute to my three biggest influences at that time, which would be Paul, Jason, and Yngwie. So that's why that song's called Under the Influence. It's my tribute to Yngwie, Paul Gilbert, and Jason Becker.
Have you ever had the chance to go out and meet Jason?
I met Jason on Cacophony's second album tour. I got to see Cacophony play live in Houston for that tour, and I got to meet Jason and Marty backstage and had an opportunity to hang out with them for a short time. And one of the questions I had for Jason was, "How did you write the beginning of To Go Off?" And he told me, he goes, "Well, I took a drum machine pattern with 16th note double bass, and I randomly erased parts. And then I went back and wrote riffs to it."
Nice.
And I've talked to him through the years on and off here and there through email and stuff. Super cool guy. He's funny. I did a thing with him called Guitars in the Round. It was me and Jason Becker and Jeff Loomis and Richie Kotzen and John Five, I think. Jason's dad was there, obviously speaking for him. And Jason was just cutting up the whole time. It was funny. And, I used to have a picture of Jason up in one of my teaching studios, and it was a picture of Jason in his wheelchair with the tubes all in him and stuff to help him breathe. And I used to use that as a point of, as a reality check for me anytime that I thought life was bad or shit wasn't going right. I've experienced nothing like that. So, couldn't be that bad.
Yep, always be thankful.
Absolutely.
All right, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. I've loved listening to the stories and hearing you talk about all these other guitar players. It's been awesome. Much appreciated.
Hey, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Okay, thanks a lot, man. Much appreciated.
All right, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, brother.